navigating this pandemic, so it's
Exactly.
difficult times, but hopefully we'll get
Yeah.
through it.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I wanted to just start off with obviously the Merrimack hockey season is back in full swing. So, how has that been for you as a broadcaster, and how different has it been now with COVID and some of the restrictions that are taking place and everything like that?
Yeah, it has been a kind of a difficult transition. We're certainly doing things differently than what we've done before. For example, one of the things that's different is we're only allowed to do home games. We're not being allowed to travel. Obviously, the restrictions at Merrimack are significant. You have to fill out paperwork, and you have to be sure that you don't have any symptoms. Otherwise, you won't even be let on campus. Obviously, the wearing of masks, social distancing. This is something that we've never experienced before in terms of broadcasting. So I think, unfortunately, we're in a learning curve where we have to kind of adjust to the times. It's difficult not being able to go on the road, certainly, but I think there's hope with the vaccines here, and
Yeah.
hopefully we can sooner rather than later get back to a place where we do what we are normally accustomed to doing.
Yeah, and so are you broadcasting from your normal spot up in the press box, or are you guys kind of isolated somewhere else, or is it
Yeah, the way that we have it structured now is that we are in the suites,
okay?
which are directly above press row there at Merrimack, and I think that was done primarily to advance the concept of social distancing. There are fewer people that can congregate, for lack of a better word, in the suite area than there are if we were down at press row. So Merrimack had to make accommodations to keep everyone safe, and that's what we're doing. So
Yeah.
it's worked out so far.
And as far as like the player access and interviews and all that kind of stuff, is it still kind of the same, or is that different too?
We do not have access to the players at all.
Okay.
What We are doing everything virtually.
Yeah.
We're doing things by Zoom. We interact with Coach Borek through the Zoom process. Will LeBlond, who's of course the SID there, does a great job in setting everything up. Any communication we have with other broadcasters is also done through Zoom. And, that's not just a Merrimack thing. That's kind of a league-wide thing. Post-game press conferences are only happening virtually now. And, again, it's done to keep people safe until we can navigate our way through these choppy waters.
Yeah, definitely. But definitely good to have you back in the booth for sure.
No, it's great. I didn't have a baseball season last year, which was very difficult, and so it was a good 9 months between broadcasts for me. So getting back in there and,
Yeah,
doing my thing was great.
for sure, definitely. So obviously you've been doing broadcasting for a number of years now. When take me back to when you were first getting into to broadcasting. How did you know that that's what you wanted to do as a career?
Well, I've known since the age of 7 that I
Yeah.
wanted to be a broadcaster. Unofficially, I guess you could say I've been broadcasting since 1971. When I was very little growing up, I used to turn the volume down on my TV and pretend that I was the play-by-play announcer. So that's really when I had the interest in it. I wound up, going to college, and I wasn't taking broadcasting in undergrad when I went to UMass. And for some reason, I had the illusion that I convinced myself that I can't do this. This is only for people that go to school for it and whatnot. I convinced myself that I couldn't do it, but I got to a point where, at the age of 30, I decided, hey, this is what I'm born to do. So I went to broadcasting school and Connecticut School of Broadcasting, got out of there, went down to the cable company in my hometown back in 1995. I approached them and I said, hey, I'd like to volunteer and do some games for you. And that's where it all started, doing the high school games for, 10 years. And then through networking and hard work, I managed to find some opportunities, and, one thing led to another. And now I find myself doing D1 hockey and pro baseball. So it just goes to show you, if you have the passion and the commitment, you can
Yeah.
make it work.
Definitely. And how important was that experience for you, when you first started out with the cable access TV doing high school games? How important was that experience to your career now, doing the Merrimack games, doing the Lowell Spinners and so forth?
Well, first of all, it convinced me that it can be done. I managed to slay the negative demons in my mind, which is the most important thing of all. But that volunteer work, really, I look back on it now and I say, hey, that laid the groundwork. That was the first opportunity I had to kind of learn and build on the broadcast skills. And it's broadcasting is like anything else. The more you do it, if you have the aptitude for it, the more you do it, the better you get. So those 10 years that I did at the cable company doing the high school football games and hockey and basketball really laid the foundation for the skills that I've been able to build on. So anybody that asks me that, I tell them that's a great thing to do. It's a valuable learning opportunity, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. I recently posted on Facebook that it was my 25th year in the business, and I went back and talked about those first years in Stoughton doing those games. And so I never forget where I came from. It's very important.
I know, obviously, I read that when you were young, Fred Cusick was a big
Yeah.
inspiration of yours, and that was the guy that you really looked up to. Obviously, he's a legend in Boston, doing those Bruins games for years. What about him really inspired you and really, made you want to go into this to this field?
Well, his knowledge and depth of the game was legendary. And I really was taken with Fred's broadcast style. He just seemed to hit the perfect note with every broadcast. He was just so on top of things. He also injected a little bit of humor into his broadcast with all the analysts he had. But he and Bob Wilson were the two big ones. Because Bob on the radio and Fred on TV. And I had the chance to meet Fred twice in my life, which was a big thrill for me. In fact, I met him on both coasts. I met him in California when I was working for the San Jose Sharks in the early '90s, and I also met him at the Garden many, many years ago. And funny story too. We almost got Fred to come on with us at Merrimack one day. I was talking to his daughter, and we tried to get him to come on, but he wound up being too ill to appear. So, but yeah, I grew up watching Fred on a black and white TV, and he's the first guy I said, hey, I want to be just like him. So he is a legend. I read his book, and he was the trendsetter for me.
So, what was that first experience like when you met him for the first time?
It was a Saturday afternoon at the Garden. The Bruins were playing the Chicago Blackhawks. I'll never forget it. And the game had just ended, and security likes to kind of whisk the fans out of the building. But I snuck over to the radio and TV area, and I was so intimidated. You want to talk about being starstruck. I mean, I'm like a 12, 13-year-old kid walking up to Fred Cusick asking for an autograph. He was gracious enough to give it to me. But yeah, it was special. It was special being able to meet the guy that I idolized growing up was very, very special, and it just cemented the fact that I knew I wanted to be like him. So hopefully I carried a little of that into the booth with me.
Yeah, I feel like you almost kind of have a little bit of Fred Cusick in you when you listen to it. But yeah, I mean, um, so you did the 10 years for the cable access TV doing the high school games. Then you got the gig with Merrimack in 2005.
Yeah.
How did that all come about when you got that job at Merrimack?
Well, I found out about that job through people in the industry. Someone had told me that there might be an opening, and I remember networking. I reached out to Aaron Todd, who was the SID at the time. He's now at St. Lawrence, and I expressed interest in the job. And I went up to interview with an individual that wound up being my color commentator for a few years, and we interviewed for the job. And I guess Aaron was impressed by the high school work that I had done, and my level of commitment to the game. I also got hired by the North Shore Spirit doing baseball at that time. So that was '05 was a big year for me. But yeah, I just found out about it through industry channels, and I pursued and persisted, and I went up and spoke with Aaron, and I got hired, and the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah, so obviously you said that you were doing baseball at the time as well. So was hockey something that you knew you wanted to get into? Was that sport that you knew like this is what I want to do?
Absolutely, hockey's my bread and butter. It always has been. Don't get me wrong. I love my baseball. I love baseball. I have all my life,
Yeah.
and I love doing those games in the summer. But hockey is really my true love. It has been all my life. I played the game, not well, but I played the game. I played the game many years ago, and I've always had a deep connection to it. So being able to do this on a regular basis with Merrimack is a real huge thrill.
Yeah, so what's the big difference between baseball and hockey as far as the broadcasting? Obviously, baseball, a bit of a slower game. Hockey's much more fast paced. Um, in your opinion, what's the big difference between broadcasting baseball versus hockey?
Well, I think you said it, Matthew. It's the pace of the game, and you have to make adjustments in your broadcast preparation and style when you're doing the two games. Baseball is a game where you can work in a lot more stories. You can work in a lot more personal anecdotes. You have to. It's unique because when you do baseball, you have to be well versed in not just baseball and sports, but you have to have an understanding of current events. And like movies and music and things like that. You have to work those things into the broadcast because you have so much time in between pitches. And hockey, you don't have that luxury. Hockey's such a fast game. It's something where you have to be on your toes every second. You can't let up. And baseball is a lot more fun to broadcast, I think, in that respect. But it's also much more challenging. People ask me all the time, what's the hardest sport to broadcast? And I tell them baseball because it's geared in such a way you have to fill in all those stories and kind of you have to be a storyteller in
Right.
baseball. Hockey is more play by play. Baseball is play by play and storytelling. So that's the primary difference, I think.
And do you remember that first broadcast at Merrimack that you had and what that was like?
I do. We were on the road that first day back in October of '05. And, I remember it because that was also Mark Dennehy's first game
Right.
behind the bench. Mark and I were hired only a month or two apart. So we Merrimack played at Bowling Green that first game back in '05. They had a 2-game road trip to start the year. They played at Bowling Green on a Friday and then at Michigan on a Sunday. The team flew out there, as the teams do. I drove out there because I wanted to make a good first impression. The team didn't take me in the early years. The team didn't take me on the flights.
Oh,
So
okay.
I drove out there and I met the team at the hotel in Ohio and we went to Bowling Green and Merrimack won that first game 3-2 out at Bowling Green. Then they got crushed 9-2 at Michigan on that Sunday. I remember we went to a Michigan football game at the Big House the day before on that Saturday. So that was a very memorable road trip.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of made a good impression on him driving out there. I don't know a lot of guys that would do that, but yeah, that first road trip was fun, and here we are. It's over 16 years later.
Right, right. And like you mentioned, you and Mark Denny were hired pretty much at the same time. I mean, that Merrimack program really wasn't in great shape, when you guys got there. I mean, how have you seen this program progress? Obviously, Mark Denny did really tremendous work in bringing that program to what it is today.
Yeah, he did. I think when Mark took over the program, he had a commitment to kind of build it from the ground up. He wanted to kind of knock it down and rebuild it, so to speak, for lack of a better word. And you're right. When the year before Mark was there under the leadership of Chris Serino, things weren't working out too well. And Mark had a commitment from day one. He had a plan. He knew exactly what he wanted to accomplish. I think the program came to its high watermark in 2010 when they went to the national tournament. Went to the Garden, played a couple of games there, and I remember losing to BC in that championship game back in 2010. And I think Mark's energy and passion really bore fruit. It really hit the high watermark in 2010. Things kind of leveled off from there, and I know Merrimack is still committed to getting back to a winning culture with Scott here. But I think, when you're talking about the turnaround of the Merrimack program, no question about it. Mark Dennehy had a critical role in that process. And we all saw it firsthand when we had that tremendous year in 2010.
Right. And what was that year like for you? Obviously, as a broadcaster, getting to that Hockey East, the getting to the Garden, and then obviously getting to broadcast in the NCAA tournament. I mean, it was an incredible team, and it must have been a great year for you personally as well.
Oh, it's my greatest year in broadcasting by far. It's funny, we won a lot of games by wide margins during the regular season. I remember beating UMass 11-2 one night at Merrimack. And, that team was something special. We knew it from the outset. But, to get to the Garden was as big a thrill as I've ever had. You're talking about a kid who watched games at the Garden, went to the games at the Garden
Right.
frequently. And to be on the ninth floor at Press Row, was still something I'll never forget. And it's funny because we played UNH the first game, and we won that one, and then of course we had the game against BC the next night, and that was a battle. It was 3-3 in the third period, and Mike and I were up in the booth there, and we're saying, Merrimack's going to win this thing. They're going to win this thing, and they're going to get an automatic bye into the tournament. Well, it didn't quite work out that way, but. I think we're going up to New Hampshire and playing Notre Dame, and in that tournament game, that was another close game. Notre Dame winning in overtime, and the funny thing about that was, I talked to Jack Parker, the BU head coach, when I wrote my book, and we were talking about that Merrimack team, and he told me off the air. He said, "You know what? I felt that Merrimack was the best team in the country that year, and they should have won the whole thing." Now, when Jack Parker says that to you, you're
That's big.
that's a big thing. So, no, that was a special year, and I hope we can get to that point again. And I wouldn't trade it for anything.
And like you mentioned, obviously being on the ninth floor of the Garden, did you have time to really soak that moment in when you were up there?
Yeah, I did in a lot of respects, but it really hit me after the game, when I was driving home. I was in the Fred Cusick TV media press box at the Garden. That was.
So that's extra special for you.
Yeah, that made it really come full circle for me. But just being up there on the ninth floor with the excitement of the fans. My wife went there. She was sitting with the Merrimack fans at the Garden. They had a big video presentation up on the scoreboard with Merrimack highlights, and my voice was a part of that. It was just so special. And I think back to the times when I finally made the decision to enter broadcasting. And that was one of those moments that said, "Hey, I did the right thing." And
Yeah.
it really made me happy to be there.
And then that's the only NCAA tournament game that you've broadcasted as well too, right? Well,
Right.
I mean, that must have been a great experience for you as well.
Yeah, it really was. Being 4 steps away from a national championship at the start of the regionals was incredible. It was an incredible feeling, and it was the atmosphere of being there. You knew it wasn't like a regular game. You knew there was so much at stake on the line, and I have a tendency to elevate my game. The brighter the lights are, the better I seem to be. And I just remember doing that game with so much energy and so much emotion. And I still have the audio of that overtime goal to this very day. And I just remember when the goal was scored. I just remember the call that I made, and there was so much disappointment in my voice, to have it end. We weren't ready for it to end. And, plus playing Notre Dame made it special. Notre Dame had their band there. And, anytime you play Notre Dame in any sport, it's a huge deal. Notre Dame would eventually come into Hockey East for a couple of years. So, no, that whole thing was special. And I just wish we had gone a little deeper, but I'll have that memory for my whole life. So that was really cool.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, it was a great season for Merrimack that year. Was there a call or a game that really sticks out in your memory when you look back?
I remember the series against Maine that we had at Merrimack, and I remember that final game, the game that we clinched against Maine, was special. The game that got us to the Garden. And I remember talking with Maine's radio broadcaster Dan Hannigan after the game, and Dan and I talked, and he said, you guys got something special here. You guys are gonna do well. So, and I remember that game. Of course, I remember the 11-2 game against UMass, and that was interesting because Coach Dennehy was coaching against Toot Cahoon, who was a guy who Mark coached under at UMass and Princeton. And but there were so many games that
Yeah,
year that were special, and it's a year I hope we get to experience again.
definitely. And then your current color guy, Mike Macknick, he joined you in 2009, so 4 years after you had gotten the job there.
Yeah.
What's it been like broadcasting games with him?
Well, Mike, first of all, is he's a hockey encyclopedia. I mean, he's forgotten things more than other people know. Really professional guy, brings a professional attitude and knowledge to the rink every night. He's been around the game forever. He was doing color commentating way back with Don Boyle before I got there. So no one knows more about the program than Mike. He's very intelligent about the game. He's very knowledgeable about broadcasting, and he's a guy that keeps me on my toes every night. I can't relax for 1 minute with Mike there because he'll pick up on anything. But no, I call him the rink doctor because he's about as knowledgeable as anyone in college hockey, and that's saying something because there's a lot of people out there who really know the game inside and out. Mike McMahon being one, Dave Starman for another. But I put Mike right up there. He's as knowledgeable as it comes, and of course he adds a lot to the broadcast. So lucky to have a guy like him to share the game with.
Yeah, and does that make it easier for you in the broadcast booth? I mean, he just comes so prepared every night.
Yeah, he does, and he keeps me on my toes in a lot of ways. But I also have to do the technical aspects of the broadcast, like playing the commercials, and now we've added goal highlights to the post game. So there's a lot of production work there that goes into it, and Mike kind of assists in that role. When I have to do the production stuff, he's there to kind of fill on the air until I get caught up. So, and of course, the obvious stuff, it's great having him during play stoppages. He can give his analysis, and then we come back to me for the play-by-play. So I think we've gelled pretty well over the years. I remember the first game we ever did together was in North Dakota, at a couple of games out in North Dakota. So we've done a lot of traveling together, and I think hopefully we've made the Merrimack hockey program pretty good in terms of broadcasting.
Was it pretty easy? Did you guys click right away, or was it? Did you guys kind of have to work on that chemistry that you guys have together?
Well, I thought so. I thought it was a pretty quick adjustment. Yeah, it was. We both love the game so much. We're both so passionate about it, and Mike and I talked before we ever did our first game together. So we got a sense of who we were, and I think once we did that first game together, we kind of learned about each other's personalities and styles, and it's been it's just progressed from there. So the learning curve in terms of chemistry, I think, was pretty quick.
And then obviously you've had some great experiences while doing these Merrimack games for all these years. Frozen Fenway being one of them back in 2014. Being able to call a game at Fenway Park, especially against Providence, that had to have been a special moment for you as well.
Yeah, that's not something you get to do every day. Just being able to walk around that hollowed stadium. That's another place I've been quite frequently as a fan, and I've done a lot of broadcasts from up there. But yeah, I just remember that day was so cold. We were in the booth and we were freezing, and we had quite the experience. The game went into overtime. It finished in a 1-1 tie. But being able to look around and seeing the Boston skyline outdoors and while you're watching hockey was special. I remember we had to have a monitor that day because we were so far away. The press box at Fenway is so far and sloped down to where the action is. We needed a monitor that day. But yeah, hopefully they'll continue that in the future, and we'll have a chance to do that again. That was pretty special.
Definitely. And you've been to a lot of rinks in college hockey. What makes Lawler such a special place? It's obviously it's a small school, so it's a small arena. But I remember even Dennehy talking about it. It's a tough place for people for teams to come in and play because it's such a tight ice surface.
Mark used to tell me that he wanted Lawler to be a place that visiting teams would absolutely despise coming to. And I think that's the culture that Merrimack has tried to continue. No, it's a unique arena because, first of all, the fans are right on top. There's probably no arena in Hockey East where that is such the case. I think of Maine, maybe, the fans being right on top of you. But, when things are going normally as they should and the fans are there, the fans are right on top of you. It's a small. It seems like a smaller rink in terms of dimensions. You have to make plays quicker as a visiting team, and it is a very very difficult place for teams to come in. But in terms of the broadcast setup, again, we're right there. We're right on top of the action, and we don't miss a thing. So I think when the fans are there and it's loud, it can be a very intimidating place, and I know that's what Merrimack hopes that it will be.
And what's your favorite place to broadcast in Hockey East and also outside Hockey East?
I've been asked that question many times, and I think, it comes down for me. It comes down in terms of atmosphere. Maine is my favorite on the road. The fans are just so into it up there. They sell out every game. That's why I feel so bad for Maine during the pandemic. They're not going to have any home games this year because of the coronavirus restrictions up in Maine. But I love Maine. I love BU as well because their press box is so huge and I have room to spread out. I heard the press box in Vermont has been updated, so I'm looking forward to going there. But I love them all. I love all the press boxes in Hockey East. But if you're looking for, I guess, a final answer, it's close between Maine and BU. And nationally, I love Notre Dame. That was an incredible place. We went there twice with Merrimack, and the Big Ten schools are so special.
Yeah.
Michigan, we were out there. I was out there a couple of years ago. So I love the Big Ten schools as well. But every rink you go to is special. It's got its own little personality. So I enjoy it all.
Yeah, and then obviously, broadcasting is a big part of your life, but also music. How did that start? Your love of music?
Well, I got to credit my dad for that. My dad and his family growing up, they grew up in a triple-decker house in Somerville. 9 kids growing up there, and music was all around them all the time. And my father kind of beat that into our head, and fortunately, I've been able to stay with that and stick with it. And it's really helped me get through the pandemic. It's so relaxing, and the stuff that I've done, I've posted some stuff on social media, and folks seem to like it. But music is so special, and that when my family gets together and we're all singing and playing stuff, it's really special. So I love it. I love it a lot.
And you play the ukulele. How did you pick that up?
I'm a big Jimmy Buffett fan, so I've listened to his stuff for years, and I know that's quite a nice instrument. My brother used to work in music sales, and I remember he showed me this uke one time. I went down into the music store, and he said, "Here, try this out." I said, "Oh man, I'm hooked. I'm hooked. I got to learn how to play this thing." So I taught myself how to play it, actually.
Oh wow!
And that's my instrument of choice. But I like it because it's so small and it's so portable, and you bring it. If you bring it anywhere, a party could break out at any moment.
Yeah.
So, No, I enjoy it, and it's a special instrument.
Do you play live at all?
Open mics.
I've done
open mics. Yeah, I've done several up in New Hampshire, as a matter of fact. And we used to have a place in my hometown that was doing music, but they closed and reopened. So hopefully they'll get back into it. But yeah, music is kind of one of those things I'd love to get really good at in terms of playing in front of people. That's my goal, is to try and play in front of people as much as I can, and try and get better at that. And we'll see how it goes.
Thinking about writing your own music at all, or maybe in the future?
Yeah, I just wrote a song actually.
Oh, nice.
About the pandemic in baseball, which I'm working on, hopefully finalizing soon.
Nice.
So so songwriting is another one of my things that I'd like to explore in the future.
Yeah.
So it's really relaxing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And you've also you've published 3 books, is that right?
Yeah, I published a book about baseball, about my experiences as the voice of the Kalamazoo Kings out in Western Michigan. I published that, and then I posted kind of like an unofficial biography. And my last book was about Hockey East, called Breakaway Wisdom, which I interviewed the coaches of Hockey East about various success concepts. So yeah, that's a proud thing that I've been able to do, and it's something that I enjoy doing, and
Yeah,
hopefully I can do more of.
definitely. And you also have a podcast that you started up last year.
Yeah.
How's that been going? And what's the concept of that podcast?
Yeah, podcasting is something I've always wanted to get into, and I launched it last year, as you said. It's called Airing It Out: Files from Leahy's Locker Room. Heavily geared toward broadcasting and experiences around that, like travel and talking to other play-by-play voices. We just had Maine's John Shields on yesterday. I'm using a platform called Anchor, which is excellent. There was a big learning curve with that, but I've been able to figure it out for the most part, and I'm really on a roll with it. So I love it. I publish a new episode every Wednesday, and it's a great way to kind of keep the broadcasting field going. So I'm very, very excited about moving on with that in the future as well.
Definitely. And then lastly, if you could give a piece of advice to up and coming broadcasters and people that want to get into the field, what's your biggest piece of advice?
I think you have to be willing to start slow at the bottom. You have to be willing to volunteer. And, I tell people all the time that want to get into the business, it's, if you're in it for glamour and money, you're in it for the wrong reason. Those things might come as a natural extension of things after you've worked hard over a period of years. But I want people to know that it's a long process. It's easy to get discouraged, but if you have the will and the passion and the ability to network and ply your trade, I think that's a great first step. You're not going to work at Nesson, right out of high school or college, or it doesn't come easy. You got to work your way up the ladder, and so get your feet in the door. No matter how you do it, whether you do volunteer work on your own, be willing to do anything. And reach out for help from mentors, and just take it one step at a time and have fun. That's what I did, and hopefully others can benefit from that kind of knowledge.
Yeah, John. Well, hey, thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it. I know you're pretty busy, obviously, with the hockey season in full swing. But yeah, thanks for coming on, and definitely enjoy the rest of the Merrimack season.
Well, Matthew, I appreciate you having me on, and it's always great to talk shop in the business. So I wish you the best of luck with your endeavors too.
Thank
And
you.
Again, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, John.
All right.
All right.
Take care.